Thanks everybody for coming to our 4 o'clock talk this afternoon. You may notice that you have a slightly different presenter than you were expecting, and that's because Space Rogue has stepped in because unfortunately our originally scheduled speaker couldn't be available here at this time. But that doesn't mean that it isn't great to have Space Rogue here. So please give him a very warm ShmooCon welcome.
Thank you, thank you. So we're going to talk about entry-level Infosec resumes today. As was just said, my name is Space Rogue. I've been around for a little while. I've done a few things. I've been interviewed by a few media outlets here and there, or given some talks. I was a member of Loft Heavy Industries. And if you want to know about that story, I have a book coming out in February that tells the complete story about Loft and Loftcrack and the Hacker News Network and the WACMAC archives and testified in front of Congress and at stake and the early days of the information security industry. It's available for pre-order wherever you buy your books. I also want to mention that I am not an HR professional. I do not work in human resources. While this talk will cover specific hiring practices, it is from the viewpoint of the hiring manager. Also note that there's a lot of automation in recruiting these days, but eventually the hiring decision still comes down to a personal interaction with someone who actually looks at your resume. Now, I work at IBM, so I'm wearing their t-shirt. I got their stickers on my laptop. I have their slides. And one of the first things I did when I arrived there, with the help of a gentleman named Johnny Shaib, well, actually it was his idea, was create an internship program for IBM's X-Force. Now IBM has its own company-wide internship program, and it's called Extreme Blue, and it goes across the entire organization. Thank you. There were some slots in that program devoted to IBM security, but there were none specific for X-Force. So Johnny and I, we asked for some budget, and we asked for some headcount to create our own program, and I was like, sure, Johnny, we'll go ask for money. Like, that's not, like, yeah, so we got budget and we got headcount. But neither one of us had ever run an internship program before, and suddenly we had to find 10 people willing to come or spend their summer in Austin, Texas. And I think at that point it was already February, and if you know anything about the internship cycle, February is very late in the cycle. We figured there was no way we were going to get enough applicants, but we opened the rec and sent out some tweets, and boom, we had 800 resumes for like 10 slots. And that first year, it was just Johnny and I slogging through all 800 resumes, trying to whittle things down to just 10 candidates. And now, here we are like 5 years later, and the program has expanded to like 4 other countries. It's become one of X-Force's primary recruiting tools. We have an entire team devoted to sorting through the candidates and the resumes that we get. We've learned to open the resume application process a little earlier. We try to start in September now, and there's a full team involved. We still get over 1,000 applicants every year to those 10 slots. So over the last 5 years, we've seen a lot of resumes. Some of them good, most of them pretty bad. But before we get into that, let's talk about the purpose of what a resume is. It is highly unlikely you will be offered a position based on your resume alone, but that's not what the resume is for. The resume's sole purpose is to get you an interview, right? The interview is where you're going to wow your future employer, and they're going to be like, oh, I got to hire this guy, or person, or woman. The resume's job is to provide enough information that the person reading it says to themselves, I need to talk to this person. It's kind of like a movie trailer, right? Or a football highlight reel. Only put the really good stuff on the resume. Leave the people reading it wanting more information. Wanting so much more that they have to call you to give you an interview. That's why I'm here today. I want to help you create a better resume. A lot of times I'm scanning over a resume in that 20 or 30 seconds that I have to review each one, and I'm asking myself, where's the rest of this? Where is it? There's got to be more here. Like, I get the feeling for a candidate based on what they've put down on the paper, and I'm like, I think there's got to be more to this person. But all I have to go on is what's on the paper. I can't go with a feeling. I have 1,000 resumes to grade, and if it's not actually written down, I can't count it. And I feel like we're just missing out on so many good candidates simply because they have a bad resume. And I don't want any more bad resumes. I want perfect resumes. So that's why I'm here today. All right, so before I get into specific do's and don'ts, let me remind you that these don't come from an HR professional, and they may tell you something completely, totally different. These are my own personal recommendations that I and my team at X-Force have come up with after reading hundreds and thousands of entry-level resumes from students who are still in college, trying to break into the information security industry. And the beauty of the resume, and one of its downfalls a little bit, is that there's no standard format, right? Each resume is as individual as the person who wrote it. And that's great. Also not so great, because then you're, as the reviewer, I'm like trying to sort for stuff, trying to search for stuff while I'm reading it. The air is dry. So I just got done watching my other son play Hack Fortress, and his team just won the semifinals, so good job, Xavier. Considering he's never played the game before, and his team was just made up this morning, or last night. No, anyway. All right, so let's cover the don'ts first. One of the biggest things I see people do all the time is they list what classes they have taken, all right? I know this one is probably a big shocker, like right out of the gate here, but especially if you've taken a resume writing class at school or in college, and they always tell you to list your classes because you're in college, you don't have a lot of experience, you don't have a lot of items maybe to list on your resume, and you're searching for things, what can I put down? And you're like, oh, list all the classes you took. Don't do that. Why? Because every one of you who are in college, you all take the same classes, right? I know what they teach in those classes, and depending on what school you're at, I probably know your professor. Don't waste space on your resume by listing out all the individual classes that you took. And I'll get into this a little bit more, but instead, I want you to list the projects that you did in those classes. Right? Tell me the things that you did, not the things that you were taught. All right, if you're an undergrad in college, a sophomore, a junior, a senior, which is mostly the applicants that I get for the internship, there's no need to go to 3 pages on your resume. And in my opinion, even 2 is pushing it. You can fit everything you need to fit in 1 page. Like, remember, we're looking at a highlight reel here, right? You just want the movie trailer. Leave them wanting more. If you think you really have enough relevant information to fill 2 pages, well, that's great. Cut half of it out. Remember, we only want stuff that will get you the interview. We don't need an entire work history or anything that is not relevant to the job that you are applying for. Ask yourself, will listing this item on my resume get me an interview? If the answer is anything but an emphatic yes, think twice about putting it down. Listing references on the resume. I don't know why people are still doing this. It was a norm years ago. It was a common thing. People put the references right on the resume, phone numbers, names, the whole thing. Don't do this. Listing references will not get you an interview. Therefore, it's a waste of space. You don't need it. Some people instead, they put down references available on request. Again, you know what? I already know that. I know if I need a reference, I'm going to ask you for it and you're going to have them. You don't need to list it on the resume. It's not going to get you an interview, and therefore it's a waste of space. All right, don't listen to your professors. Another one is probably a little shocking, at least when they say anything about resumes. Okay, listen to them for anything else. They know what they're talking about, but not necessarily about resumes. Ask your professor when the last time they wrote a resume or had to apply for a job, or ask them when was the last time that they actually hired anybody and looked at a resume. Most of the time, it was years and years ago. It's amazingly obvious when I'm reading a resume, when someone listed a specific item and it didn't fit anywhere else on the resume. And most schools offer a resume writing class or a workshop, and by all means attend those workshops and classes and those sessions. But don't take everything they say in those sessions as a final word. One thing resume classes teach is keywords, right? And how it is important to include all these hot topic buzzwords on your resume to beat the automated HR scanners. Well, I'll tell you a little secret. If you're following the job requisition that you're applying for, the one that was posted, and you're qualified for that position, then you're gonna have the keywords necessary to get past the filters already, just by listing out what you have that qualifies you for that job. If you try to game the system and stuff your resume full of keywords, by the time it gets to a real person, your resume is either going to be unreadable or irrelevant, and either way, you won't get the interview. All right, and this follows right along with don't listen to your professors. A lot of schools have an example template or a school suggested format, or maybe the school auto-generates your resume based on the classes you've taken. I don't know, but when you're reviewing thousands of resumes, all from pretty much the same schools, they all start to look exactly the same. Or at least the ones that look exactly the same stick out like a sore thumb. And I never even knew this was a thing until I started getting resumes with the same exact format from different people. And you're like, oh, wait, this was the same one I looked at 5 resumes. Oh, there's the same school, right? And you're thinking, well, they must have been teaching this format, and everybody copied this format down. And there are several, this isn't just one school that this happens from, this happens from a couple. So there are thousands of different formats out there. There is no one set format. Feel free to Google one and find one and make it your own. And that's kind of the beauty of it, right? Be an individual. Let yourself come through in your resume. If you're applying for an information security position, don't try to be a graphic designer. With your resume. No flashy colors, no really shaped text boxes, no animated GIFs. Yes, I've had animated GIFs. No multicolor fonts. None of that is going to get you an interview, especially if you have a hard time finding information on the page. If I'm like looking around trying to figure out, all right, where's his work experience? Where's her projects? Where's this? Where's that? I'm just going to get frustrated. It's like, okay, this person's not qualified. I'm moving to the next one. Don't make me look for stuff. Like, even if it's a delay of a few seconds, that's going to hurt your chances. And it might, like I said, it might just be enough to make me give up and move on to the next candidate. Nicely formatted text that's easy to read. Give me enough white space in between sections. That's all I need. This includes photos. I don't know why there seems to be a resurgence of people adding their photo, maybe because of all the social media, everybody has an icon or whatever, people are putting photos back on their resume, headshots. Don't do that. I mean, it could trigger an unknown bias in the reviewer. Maybe your photo reminds them of a person they used to be in a relationship with that ended badly or something, who knows? There's nothing to gain from including a photo. It's not going to get you the resume, get you the interview. You're not applying for an acting position or to be a model. A photo's not going to get you that interview, so save the space. I do have one other don't that I didn't list on a slide because it could go either way, and that is listing your fraternity or your sorority. I've seen some people do this. I know in some cases that might be an automatic interview. If the person who's reviewing your resume attended the same fraternity, maybe they're going to, oh, I'll give this person an interview. But at the same time, there's also a lot of people that don't like fraternities and sororities. So if you list it and you get a reviewer who is of that persuasion, that may be an automatic no. So my suggestion is don't include it unless you know who's going to be the actual reviewer and you know it's going to help you. Another don't that I didn't have room for is the cover letter. I would prepare a generic one and have it ready if you need it, but 90% of the time, don't bother uploading it and including it in the online system, because unless the automated system has a specific section for a cover letter, don't try to squeeze it in with the resume section. I've occasionally gotten just a cover letter with no resume because the system barfed on it and chunked the second page off or something. I don't know what happened, and I have to go back to HR and say, hey, I got a cover letter and a resume, and it puts a delay in the system while they go look for your resume because the person uploaded a cover letter instead. But it's one of those things that, and some people don't even read the cover letter, like me. I used to, but after 1,000 resumes, it's like they're all the same. I want a position in information security to better follow my dream and be a great cyber person, right? They're all the same thing. So I don't even read the cover letter anymore. But some people really appreciate those and thinks it goes the extra mile and shows some consideration to the position. So if there is a section on the form that you're applying to that says cover letter, put your cover letter in. If that section does not exist, then don't try to squeeze it in anywhere else. If you're actually mailing in your resume, I could go either way. I don't know if anybody actually still does that, physical mail papers. Anybody applied to a position with physical paper? No? Okay. Yeah. All right. All right. So if you remember back like 5 minutes ago, the first thing on my list of don'ts was don't list your classes, right? So if you've listed your degree program, you've listed your degree program that you're in, so I already know what classes are involved, so there's no need to list out the individual classes. Instead, list the projects that you completed in those classes. I'm much more interested in how you applied the knowledge you were given than a dry list of topics that were covered in the class. Did you write a quirky little side-scrolling game in your Scratch programming class? Well, list your quirky little side-scrolling game. And maybe I'm a gamer who's interested in quirky little side-scrolling games. That might be enough to get you an interview, right? Or maybe you wrote a Flash-based command and control framework with a web front end with HTML and CSS and JavaScript. Maybe that sounds a whole lot better than Web Programming 203, right? I'm going to be a lot more impressed by the project than the class. If you are still in school and trying to break into information security or the cyber industry, it's unlikely that you have much, if any, relevant work experience. It doesn't matter. List what jobs you have had. If those jobs don't relate to Infosec, then 5 minutes, all right. If those jobs don't relate to Infosec, then they don't need large descriptions or any description. If it's important for someone who's reviewing your resume to know that you have actually had a job in the past. Doesn't matter if that job was mowing lawns or flipping burgers or just babysitting the neighbor's kid, list it down. You absolutely need some sort of work history. The more relevant the previous job is to the job you're applying for, the longer a description it should have. Often I see resumes with absolutely no jobs listed at all, and I don't know why they didn't list something, because I've never interviewed one of those candidates, so I was never able to ask them, well, how come you didn't list some kind of job, right? There has to be something in your past that you've done to earn some money. Like I said, even if it's babysitting or paper route or whatever, put something down. I've already talked about not going over 2 pages, and really you should try to keep it to 1 page. I also mentioned not trying to be a graphic designer with your resume. Try to understand, in any large company or even smaller companies that might be outsourcing their recruiter, your resume is going to go through at least a half a dozen systems before HR sends it to me, the hiring manager, for review. You want your resume to look as good as it gets when you submitted it as to when I get it. Now, PDFs, of course, make this pretty easy these days, but not every recruiting system accepts PDFs. So you need to have a well-formatted Word version and even a straight text version that you can just copy and paste from. The text version, of course, makes it real easy to preserve some of the formatting when you need to copy and paste your resume into a random web form. A lot of times these random web forms will lose all your formatting, and you just have a jumble of text. If you notice that, try to go back in and manually edit it. Yes, it's a pain. But when it gets to the other end, if all I have is a wall of text to look at, that's not good. I don't want to have to sit there and try to decipher stuff. If you have competed in CCDC, CPTC, Cyber Patriot, try Hack Me, Hack the Box, local Capture the Flag competitions, Hack Fortress, right? Put that on the resume. I can't tell you how many people we get into an interview only to find out that they've competed in some competition, and then I find out after I get in the interview, and I ask them, well, why didn't you put that on the resume? And they tell me like, well, my professor told me not to. Like, that's exactly the type of person I want, is the person who's going to compete in those competitions, and here the professors tell them, don't put it on your resume. I don't understand that. I mean, I can sort of understand if you're competing in an offensive competition and you're applying for a defensive position, yeah, maybe, but the mindset is there. And I'm running out of time, so I'm going to try to go a little quicker. Bug bounties, same thing. If you participate, list it. List the programs you're involved in and any rankings that you have. Don't list every single bug. I had one person send me 12 pages of every bug he's ever found. I don't want that. It's not going to get you the interview. But put enough information on there. I participate in this bug bounty. I got 5 bugs. right? That's enough for me to maybe give you an interview and ask you about that during the interview, right? You don't need big, long descriptions if you do any sort of volunteer work, even if it's not InfoSec related, especially if it's not InfoSec related, church group, pet shelter, soup kitchen, whatever. Doesn't need a long explanation. A simple line item is good enough, but I want to see a well-rounded individual. And this sort of extracurricular type of activity goes a long way in showing me that. Any InfoSec stuff that you do, helping out at a B-Sides conference, simply attending ShmooCon, put that on there. All right, you're entry level, you can get away with that. Put that on there, I want to see that. It speaks to the type of person you are, and just simply attending a major hacking / InfoSec conference says something about you as a person. Skip that. If you serve any time in the military, especially at larger organizations, we often give extra credit for veterans. So if you're military, active duty, reserves, National Guard, ROTC, junior ROTC, whatever, listed on the resume. If I ran out of room for this, but if you have a GitHub, put that on the resume. If you're not proud of the code in your GitHub, well, you can have more than one account. But also realize that just because you list the GitHub or other link, website, doesn't mean that I, as the reviewer, am going to have time to look at it. A lot of times I just know, oh, this person has a GitHub. Well, that's good, plus 1 point. I know some reviewers who make it a point to go through and look through the code and spend the time in doing that. I don't have time to do that. But if you have a GitHub, if you have code that's public, if you commit to open source projects, list those things. Hopefully, this is an excellent example resume. How am I doing on time? I still got a minute or two? I'm done? I got 1 minute? All right, so hopefully this is properly obfuscated, but this was one of the better resumes that I got. They list their degree program, they list their GPA. I would not recommend doing that unless it's a solid 4.0, because if they're ranking by GPA, and some companies do that, there's always going to be somebody who's higher. So unless you've got a 4.0 GPA, just don't even bother putting it on there. If they want to know, they'll give you the interview and they'll ask. All right? A lot of clubs at this school that this person went to, big school of tech, a lot of various InfoSec related clubs, and they listed them all. That is great. One thing at the bottom, they listed, there's the word salad. It's down at the bottom, okay? If you're going to do it, put it at the bottom. But again, I don't need all those keywords and buzzwords for me. That's for the HR automated system. All right, some of the stuff I mentioned the last 17 minutes or so would probably apply to anyone applying to any job, but some of it also only applies to entry-level positions. If you have a few years of experience and are looking for a more senior role, and you know the applicant pool won't be in the thousands, for example, I would include a cover letter for, So you really have to tailor your resume for your career. An entry-level resume is going to look different from mid-level or senior resume. Some things hold true across all, like focusing on things you have actually done, projects that you've completed, not just things you were taught or a list of software applications you heard of once. Now, we still, at IBM X-Force, we still have some openings, and I'm being told to stop.